Welcome to Season 5 of SEL in EDU. This is a space for educators who believe social-emotional learning isn't an add-on. It's part of how we teach, lead, and show up every day. I'm Dr. Krista Lay, and in each episode, we'll explore real stories, practical strategies, and the human side of learning that helps schools grow with intention. Dr. Michele Ogden has spent her career in California schools as a teacher and principal. But some of her most meaningful work happens outside of them. 8 years as a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate for youth in foster care. In this episode, Michele explains what the role actually involves, from ramen outings and first train rides to the one-page court reports a judge reads before every hearing. She also covers the practical side, the training, the time commitment, and why educator skills translate so naturally to advocacy. Thanks for returning back, SEL and EDU family. I am with a dear friend, Dr. Michele Ogden, who lives out in California and is having beautiful weather. And while you may have heard Michele on other podcasts, because she's been an administrator and she's a teacher, I'm wanting to talk to her about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is being a CASA. Michele, welcome to SEL in EDU. First, how are you doing today being out in California?
Thank you for having me, first of all, Krista. It's always nice to be here talking with you. California is great. It actually rained overnight, which is very unusual, but that's usually what happens when I'm on a vacation.
It is your spring break, so it is vacation.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Just love being here. Appreciate the weather.
And see, that makes me feel better for you and not as envious because you appreciate it. Like sometimes I think when people are in a certain situation, it becomes so natural to them that they don't notice it anymore.
Yeah, I appreciate it every day. Can't take it for granted.
So would you mind explaining to our folks here what a CASA is and what it stands for?
CASA is a nationwide organization that supports foster youth, and it stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. And the role of a CASA is to be a mentor and advocate for a child that is in the foster system. So whatever the circumstances are, they're away from their families or their home. Oftentimes they are with family members, or they could be in group homes or any number of different circumstances. But the role of the CASA is to be the person that is there with them to develop relationships and to advocate on their behalf, both with the different specialists that they see and by creating court reports that go to the judge periodically as they are a dependent of the court. And
so based on our conversations, you've done this twice in larger chunks, 4 years and then a little bit of a break and 4 more years again. What led you to want to help fulfill this role in a child's life?
Yeah, early on in the early 2000s, when I became a stay-at-home mom and my kids were really young, I was looking for something that I could do for myself, like something that could take me away from just the role as mom, which I really love and appreciate. But I knew there was something more that I was looking for, and I was pursuing all different ways to volunteer, different organizations, and there's so many great things out there. But the thing that really spoke to me about CASA was the fact that the kids that are in foster care, it's because they had to be removed from their homes. They had to be removed from the people that they love, regardless of what the situation was. And the idea of being there for them when sometimes it can be a little bit scary that they might be living with new people that they don't know. They have all these new people that are part of their lives. They have an attorney, they have social workers, they might have therapists that they're working with, any number of people who are there. And they can also come and go. There's a lot of turnover there. As I learned about the organization CASA, what I learned is this is the consistency that stays there for the child as they are working through things, as their families are working through things. So it's really what spoke to me because I wanted to be there for the child and really get to know them and give them a caring relationship at a time that is really turbulent for them.
I like what you've shared about it being a consistent, trusting, caring adult. And in the SEL research, it's Scales and Leffert, 1999.
I love it.
Through this program, the doctoral program. But they say all it takes is one caring, consistent adult to make a difference in a child's life. And it's not necessarily that people are choosing to be in and out, but it's sometimes the nature of external forces or the job. And you get to be that consistent person. And a friend of mine who also told me about this, who lives near me, mentioned that the CASA is often the person who chooses to be there. There's not any money involved, there's not a job or a title involved. And that makes the difference in the relationship. From your experience, what have those relationships looked like or sounded like for you?
It's interesting that you mentioned that because that has come up quite a bit with the youths. I'll call him CASA kid. I always call him CASA kid. But the CASA kid that I work with, this is now 4 years that we have been together. As he first came into the foster system, I was paired with him from the start. And over the years, our relationship has really changed and grown. There was a time there, I would say probably like the first year and a half, 2 years, where he would regularly ask me, really, they don't pay you? They don't pay you to do this stuff? And I would answer and we would talk about it. And then it would still come up again. Like he couldn't believe that there was somebody volunteering to be there with him. At that point, he'd probably had maybe two different social workers because their caseloads are incredibly difficult and things change for all different reasons. But really, for him to know that I was there and that I wasn't going to go anywhere was huge. We've talked about things like he's now 18. He's talked about over the past couple of years what it's going to be like for him when he's on his own and when he's grown and when he has a family and when he gets married, things like that. And he's always said, I know now that when I get married, you'll be there. And
Oh,
so it's like that turning point where after being with him for a number of years, he's really grown. It makes me teary.
I'm like, oh, my nose is tingly and my eyes are welling up.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting that. But it really does matter that they know that we're not really paid to be there. There's no reason we have to be there. We're there because we want to be there and we choose to be there and we want to get to know them and support them in their growth, get to talk to them. That's one of the fun things too. I had two different connections completely when I did it in the early 2000s for about 4 years. And then this time we did totally different things because it's about building that relationship and getting to know the child. In this case, the current one that I have, he really loves trying new foods all the time. So that's a big thing that we do. But while we are there eating and he's exploring these new foods, we are having such amazing conversations and I get to know him and he gets to ask questions. And I think it's really helped both of us in this process, just getting to know that I can be there for somebody else without anything to personally gain and just really focus on him and what does he need and what does he want. And then also to be able to advocate for that too.
What does that look like when you say you have time with him? If you could give me an example of what a typical month might look like.
Let me start actually with the CASA organization and what they ask of people. They do ask for a 2 year commitment. They do ask that you meet regularly and that you put in like 10 to 12 hours a month. It could be with paperwork, it could be with contacting teachers or contacting school counselors, working with the family that the child is with, or the time that is actually out with the child and spending that together. When I first started with him, I asked him what he was comfortable with. He was already in 8th grade at that time, and this was all new, and it was a little overwhelming because he had so many different people in his life all of a sudden. And so I wanted him to feel comfortable. So I gave him the choice of this is what it could look like. We could meet every week. We could meet every other week. If you want to go super slow, we can meet once a month. Whatever you are comfortable with is what we will do. And so when we first started, every other week was what he said he was comfortable with. And we started with very short visits. The very first few of them, I took pizza over and we went to one of the picnic tables that were in his apartment unit. And we just hung out there and talked. And then as I got to know him, I got to learn about things that he was interested in and knowing that he liked to try new foods and wanted to explore all different things. We came up with a plan. So a lot of the outings were around food and he really wanted to try like ramen with the hard-boiled eggs or soft-boiled eggs on the inside because he wanted to see what that tasted like because he had seen it on social media before. Like things like that. We kind of balance. We do more regularly, we do those kinds of meals where we can actually sit and talk when he has more time, because as a teenager, that time can be limited. So we adapt and change. He got involved in sports. And so we had a little bit less time. And so I always work around what his schedule is. There have been times where maybe he was having some difficulty in some areas, and then we might increase the visits then. I've taken him to different places that he hasn't been before. We've gone to go-karting, exploring this old town area near us. We took the train to go explore because he had never been on a train, and just little things like that where he has never experienced that. And for those of us that are parents, we know that we want to give our kids those experiences. And he was eager for that. And he was so grateful. And I can tell you, every single time I see him, he says, "Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate this," every single time. And that hasn't changed. But our visits are something I look forward to because I know that it's a good time to talk to him. I can see when he really wants to talk about something specific or if he wants to just relax a little bit. We are also discussing things for his future. We're talking about college planning, what kinds of work he wants to do. He's very inquisitive, so he asks a lot of questions about finances and how do taxes work and how does filling up your gas tank work. All of these kinds of things are everyday things that a mentor can help and support in addition to the bigger things where you want to make sure they have the health care they need. You want to make sure that they're doing well in school and that there are no issues coming up there. So it's a varied role, and it comes a lot from what the individual child needs.
One of the ahas that I had is that they might not have always had this one-on-one time with a caring adult. And even in the foster home that they're in, there might be a couple children. And so everybody needing something different at different times, they might not always get that one-on-one time. And so that's a really special and unique opportunity for them to talk about what they want to talk about, to explore what they want to talk about with somebody who is consistent.
And that is actually one of the things that the organization I work with here in Orange County, they prioritize placing children individually, not as families. So that way you can really develop that one-on-one relationship rather than going with what most of the kids want in the group.
And you mentioned that there's a connection to school as well. Can you talk a little bit more? Because one of the reasons I was interested, two of the reasons, my ex-husband had been in foster care for a while when he was younger. So that hearing his experiences got me thinking. But then also, both of us having roles in education, we might be able to navigate some of those educational conversations that maybe foster parents or other people in different professions might not be able to do with the ease that we can do it.
I'm very vocal about my work with CASA and trying to get other educators involved because I think it's a natural fit for somebody who's looking to explore ways to help outside of a classroom or a school setting. They do provide a lot of training. You don't have to be an educator to be successful at this. They do a lot of training where they talk about building relationships and cycles of abuse and things that might be relevant in some of the cases that we have. And so it's pretty extensive. It's 30 to 40 hour training, depending on the specific location that you're at. But I think as an educator, it gives me a lens where I'm comfortable talking to people at schools. I'm comfortable connecting with counselors or talking to teachers about IEPs. In some cases, these are important topics that need to be addressed for the individual student, but also connecting with others. I think we're comfortable talking to parents. We're comfortable talking to other kinds of service providers that might be coming into our schools, and being able to reach out and connect is a big part of what I do as a CASA.
And in terms of your time per month, how much of that time are you talking to school personnel versus are you getting to have that one-on-one time with him?
I would say the majority of the time is with him, and the school personnel or other things could be situational. It's more relevant, I think, when we have like a court report due. So every 6 months, there is a hearing for the child, and we submit court reports. And we always want to make sure we talk to everybody who is relevant to the child's life at that time. So we check in with the caregivers, we check in with the school personnel, we check in with the social worker, just to make sure that we have a clear picture. Because when we do our court reports, it's just a one-page document that goes directly to the judge. And oftentimes when the judge gets the cases, they're looking at that page to see what does the CASA say, because CASA is the one that has such a strong relationship with the child. And in that's where we can put recommendations if they need any kind of medical treatment or just want to say how great things are going. Those are all things that a judge wants to know about because they don't get to have that same kind of relationship with the child.
Your kids are grown in their 20s and you're working with younger kids right now in elementary, but your quote CASA kid, he's in his teens. And so when somebody is interested in signing up, like I was a former high school teacher, so I feel more comfortable with the older students. So my question is, do you get to select what age group you would probably best connect with, or is it more of a random assignment?
Yeah, I can speak to the group that I've worked with here. They work really hard to make sure it's a good fit because they want a lasting connection. They want a successful placement for both the child and the CASA because their goal is to have that consistency again, like we talked about. So they do take into consideration what CASA is comfortable with, what age range is that you're comfortable with, if there are specific things that really stand out to you that you're like, oh, I'm really passionate about this. I would really love to have a child that I could support in this way. And then you also review the files before you actually accept a placement. And so you get an idea for the background and what's happened and what's going on in the child's life. So you have a better frame of mind going into the situation, knowing what that experience has been like, so you can really navigate that new relationship in a much more effective way.
Does the child get a chance to say, yes, this is working for me, or no, maybe it's just not a good match?
Yeah, absolutely. They have the right to say no. They have the right to say, this isn't something I want to do. And I think that's why that relationship building is so important. They have to feel comfortable. They have to want to be with you because it is, like I said, in a situation where they are going into a new environment and they have all the new people around, this can sometimes feel like just another person that they have to talk to. And you don't want it to feel like something they have to do. It should be something that can be a positive experience that they can enjoy, that they look forward to. And so they always have the right to say, no, I don't want to continue with this anymore. And I've seen that happen in other situations for whatever reason. It could not be a match. And for the CASA, that means sometimes that they might get reassigned. And so you go through that process of matching with somebody else again. They're always looking for that best fit. But there are a lot of kids on the wait list. I know I just looked this morning at the one here in Orange County. The latest numbers they have on their website is that there are still 300 kids waiting for a CASA placement just here in my county alone. And if anybody's thinking about it, I always want to advocate at least finding out more about it because there are so many kids that could use a caring adult.
Your husband, Akasa, also?
I think it's been about 3 years. So he had been working nonstop and retired. And after a short time, I always talk about CASA and what a positive experience it is. And he was looking for something to do. And he started to ask a few more questions about CASA, the program, the requirements. And so, yeah, he decided to do it too. So he's been involved now for about 3 years. And it's great to know that he has a positive effect on youth out there.
I love that because when I first learned about this and I came back to talk to my husband, Carlo, and he's, oh, that sounds amazing. And then my brain started going because I'm like, he speaks Spanish and Italian. And so he might be able to connect with somebody in their primary language, whereas I wouldn't be able to do that. I think there's so many ways to connect with the youth and to provide support for them and just let them know that there's somebody in their corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has this experience impacted you as a teacher and as a parent?
Yeah, as a teacher, I think it's made me more aware of the fact that there's a lot going on that we don't know about in kids' homes. I know when it gets to the point of a child being removed from a home, that's pretty extreme. And even without that, there are so many different issues. Like I bet we can both think of something from our childhood that probably nobody else knows or nobody knew was happening. So in the classroom, what I try to keep in mind is every time the kids are coming to school, I am there to just be that positive person. If they're coming to school late, especially in elementary, like that's probably not their doing. and just welcoming them and letting them know how happy I am that they're there instead of, oh, you're late again. Just welcome them. Just let them know that you are so happy that they are there. I think the other part of it is like thinking about how I used to think about weekends and vacations. I would think about that as, oh, great, go enjoy your weekend. But the reality is, not every family life is going to be such a positive thing, at least not every weekend or every vacation. And so it's made me more aware of how I speak about things when we have holidays coming up. We were just talking about how I'm on vacation right now. I always talk about how I'm going to miss them and how I can't wait until we see each other again. I want them to know that when they come back to school, that there's going to be somebody there that's happy to see them. I understand that at home, there may be some great things happening and there may be some not so great things happening. And just being accepting of whoever, however they are when they come to the classroom, and just be ready to continue to build that positive relationship there.
It makes me think, even at the secondary level, I had a junior once who had 3 kids at home of her own. And so she wasn't at school all the time because she was taking care of her own kids. And I had another student who was taking care of her siblings and wasn't always there. And when they would come back to school, other teachers would say, how are they passing your class? Because technically they're supposed to get 10% off for every day that something is late, unexcused. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you realize why they're not here? Like, there has to be, one, a sense of empathy, and then two, compassion, that not all rules apply equally.
Right.
It was more of catching somebody up and, okay, here's where we're going to be, and taking a test or being able to say, yes, they are passing, they understand and can demonstrate that they have this knowledge, but realizing that, like you said, not everybody's home experience is what we would want it to be.
And I'm so grateful that we are where we are now with SEL, just in general. Like, we have a better understanding of it. And I think that's something that we can continue to learn about and talk about, because we want everybody to have that understanding about kids and their lives and just wanting what's best for them. And by understanding their situation, we can better understand what they need.
So, having your experiences working with the organization and also teaching in the classroom, what have you learned, or how do you balance having that compassion and the understanding and holding high expectations for students, knowing that some of them are going through really difficult situations?
I think it all starts from caring and understanding the child. And I think when we have that whole child perspective, we're always looking at each child as an individual. And so while you're building that relationship, when you have a relationship with somebody, you also want what's best for them. And not only in their personal life, but you want what's best for them in their academic lives too. For me, what that means is I'm looking at how I can have that expectation and also support their learning to get there. So what am I doing in terms of providing additional intervention or support if that's needed? How am I making sure I am doing everything that I possibly can to make that an attainable goal for them, rather than just have that as an expectation without the supports? And sometimes they might be a little defeated if they don't have that support there too. So as a team, we look at that stuff regularly. How are we making sure we're supporting all students? I know specific situations that might be going on with individual students, and it could be a matter of how we partner kids or how we provide tier 2 or tier 3 supports for academics. But I think it always has to be from the foundation of the relationship first. I think if it's not starting there, it's much more difficult to do. It reminds me of, you're probably familiar with the video from Rita Pearson, Every Kid Needs a Champion. That is always in my head. They need to know that we are there for them and we want what's best for them. And I think that's how you can meet in the middle, how they can give it the best of whatever that looks like for them. Their best at any given time for any kid can vary. And if we know that they're coming with their best and we're giving our best, then that's where we have the best chance of helping them to succeed.
This is one of the reasons why I love talking with you, because you live SEL. And so when you said that the Rita Pearson clip is constantly going through your head, I think of that as like the lens through which you use to interact with all of your students. And I know because you have a lot of kids in your class.
I do. I have a lot.
When I had kids in my classroom, their bodies took up, right? And so when I see the pictures of all the amazing things that your kids do in the classroom, I get so excited for them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's over 30, there's a lot of them. But the idea that you champion every single one of them, I know is 100% true. And so you come at it from that relationship piece. You remind me very much of Zaretta Hammond. She always talks about having high expectations, but also high levels of care and support and scaffolding to go with that. Because, yeah, I never want to be one of those people who tells a child they can't do something or we don't think they can, because they can.
Right? They don't need that voice in their head.
We do that to ourselves, don't we? And also, again, what your best looks like. I just had this conversation yesterday with my 21-year-old in college where he was talking about different grades and struggling on certain courses. And I'm like, your best doesn't mean 100% in every direction. Your best is that you've done everything you could with what you had. And that's
such a good reminder. And I think he's so lucky to be able to have that conversation with you at 21 and to still continue to get that wise information.
And I'm also thinking that it set a really good model for your own kids. So could you walk me through how you explain this process to your own kids when they were younger?
Yeah, I think when they were younger, it was probably a little harder just because I was leaving. And I think they were so used to just having me there. But it was important for me to explain to them that there are ways that we help other people too. We help each other in our family, and we can reach out and we can connect with others and help in different ways. And now that they're in their 20s, I'm thinking they see that there's a benefit to helping other people, and the way they do it is going to look totally different from the way I do it. But they have grown up with that value of seeing that I've had a commitment to that. And that even though I left it for a while because our lives got a little crazy and I knew I couldn't have that level of consistency, that I came back to it. When I went back to being a CASA was when I was a principal. That was definitely a lot on my plate at that time. And I knew that was such a big focal point of my life that I needed something else. I needed to have something else where I could just connect with somebody one-on-one. It filled that need I had then. And I think that's when my kids really saw the benefit, because they were old enough to know that I was helping somebody who wasn't able to be with his family anymore. And so just knowing that I was taking time out for CASA Kid, that's something that they knew. And they said, great, have a great time. And they knew that it was something that I looked forward to. And so I know that's something they'll carry with them as they continue with their adult lives.
And you said something important there at a point where you have that consistent time. And you and I have talked about this before, because travel is a big part of the work that I do now. And so you mentioned that the schedule can be flexible, and that if I know I'm away during some time, could you explain some of those pieces to people who might be a little unsure, or they're like, I have a schedule that is not very stable.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still do this. They can work with the organization, because that has kept me interested in, okay, I can still engage in this and know that I'm not dropping a ball.
I think the way everybody schedules their time depends on what the child has going on in their lives, but also what the CASA has going on. There might be times where I was traveling and I said, okay, so I'm going to see you before I go, and then I'm going to see you again when I return. And I think it's just down to that communication and figuring out what schedule is going to work best. And some people have a regular routine where they say, okay, we're always going to meet on this day of the week. Some schedules don't work that way for either person, so you have to be flexible with it. In the beginning, we had to schedule things monthly, and so we would put it on the calendar, but it wasn't a consistent day every time. The family was managing lots of different schedules for different kids, and so I had to put something together that said, okay, this is for this month. Is this going to work? And then they would say yes or no. We would tweak it, and then the next month we would have to do the same. Over time, it's changed, and I can, as he started working and things like that, I could say, okay, so what does your schedule look like next week? What days do you have? These are the days I have. And just like anything else, we find a time that works. So it's flexible in that you can figure out the actual days or times or length of time that you spend. Most of ours are just a couple hours, but sometimes during vacation times, it might be something longer, like a half day or longer, depending on what we're planning.
Oh, I think we talked about this before, but if they're involved in sports or you said at work, like part of that is that you can go support them and cheer them on, even if it's not like a, hey, we're going out to a one-on-one to try different food. But it could be like, hey, just wanted to stop in and cheer you during this game, or I was going past this place and this reminded me of you, so I wanted to drop it off. There can be those pieces as well.
Absolutely. The youth that I work with, he was a little shy about having me go out. So I did ask if he'd be okay. And for a long time, he said no. And so I was like, that's fine. Just let me know if and when you change your mind about that. But yeah, you can support them in whatever they're doing. Some kids might be involved in other kinds of activities, musicals or whatever, but you're always welcome to go as long as it's something that works for both you and the youth. And then I did ask him if we are ever out and we run into somebody that you know or somebody that I know, like how do you want to be introduced or what do you want to say about who I am? And so in that case, he said, oh, I'll just call you my tia, my aunt. And so he would say, I told my friends I was going to see my tia, so I couldn't go out. It's just all those things that you have to think about, but you figure it out together. And I think that continues to build that positive relationship because he knows that I'm not just going to say something that might embarrass him or make him feel uncomfortable, that I'm always going to check in to see how is he feeling about it and what is he most comfortable with in every situation.
That's very thoughtful because my brain didn't go there for, oh, what if we're out? Not everybody deserves to know all the information.
Right.
And so, really thinking about how do you want this to look and letting them have the agency to take that lead.
Because there is a lot about confidentiality too. And so you want to make sure that you are following guidelines that are set out. And at the same time, just making sure they feel comfortable.
When you look back on your time, is there any advice that you would give to somebody that is looking to explore this as a direction that they feel passionate about and purposeful in their life?
Yeah, just take a look at the website. That's a great place to start. It gives you a lot of information for your local area. Each of them do things slightly different, but the whole premise of the organization or what it's established to do is the same. They're all there to provide support for kids who need it and to match with caring adults who are going to be committed to being there for them and speak on their behalf. So take a look at websites, look at the information there. They usually have information nights on Zoom or in person. It's usually like an hour or something, but it's an easy thing to listen to learn more about if it's something you might be interested in.
So you're working with them at the younger years, and I'm still navigating, but it makes me think that all of our students need this, no matter what their home situations are. And you especially brought it up in the beginning that for whatever reason, they're in different home situations than what they expected. They're still connected to people. It just didn't work for them in the way that we might have imagined. And when I think about my ex, who I met when I was 19, when he first told me about his experiences, part of me shut it off. And I was having all this cognitive dissonance. Oh, yeah, I've heard about that in the movies and the TV, but never knew anybody who that happened to in real life. And now there's this person who I care deeply about. And it just frames things differently, that all of our kids should have a champion. And the fact that you champion as a principal, an entire building, as a teacher, all of the kids that are in front of you, your own children, and you extend to kids for many years who need to have an aunt, a tia. So as we work on wrapping up, I'm hoping that people who are listening will think about, I have some time, I have this desire and commitment, whether you're in education or not. And there's a whole other part that you can contribute to and have meaning in somebody's life. And I still continue to explore that for myself and hope that one day I can say that I've been through the process and can do this. Is there any advice that you would give somebody who is going out and saying, yes, this is what I want to do?
Thank you for having this topic come up because I think that's opening up the doors for a lot of people who might be thinking about something like this. And I think for people who are going down this path, you just always approach it from your heart and listen to the child. And I think the relationship is first and foremost the important part. The other parts are going to come as a natural result of the work that you're doing. The relationship is key. The relationship matters. And so I hope that there are people looking to go down that path because I know it'll really change a kid's life.
Thank you. For those of you who are listening, if you go into the show notes, I will put a link to Michelle's email and to her Instagram account so that you can reach out with any other questions. Thank you, Michele, for your time during your spring break to talk about something that's so important and something that I continue to want to learn more about. And I love hearing your experiences with your young man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. And I learned so much from your podcast. So keep on bringing the SEL to us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of the SEL in EDU family. As you move into the rest of your day, I invite you to notice one small way social emotional learning showed up in your thinking, your relationships, or your work. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep making space for meaningful, connected learning.